Alright guys, welcome back to another video, and we had another little break there. I apologize. We were, me and my wife were out of country actually, visiting a couple other places outside of the US, but we are back and we have been making big progress on this thing the last few days. I was able to finally wrap up the exhaust, which I did start to video, but because the truck is, you know, just sitting out in the dirt and I had to just jack it up, it was incredibly hard to video, and I was just moving around way too much to video without someone else doing the actual videoing for me. So I apologize for that, and here in a little bit I'll show y'all what the exhaust looks like. I'm super happy with it. The muffler I use sounds great. But right now what we're going to be working on is something that I was thinking about a couple weeks ago, trying to figure out if I should or shouldn't do it. So long story short, I used a EFI fuel pressure regulator and turned it way down and was able to get it to around 6-7 psi, and it works fine. My concern is that I'm going to burn up that fuel pump very quickly, and I really am trying to retain the stock fuel tank, the stock fuel pump, so that way if I had a fuel pump problem out on the road or just whatever, it would make getting another fuel pump super easy. They're super cheap, and then just drop the tank, put the new fuel pump in it. So in the nature of trying to reuse all of that, obviously my carburetor needs around 6 to 8 psi. This system factory, I don't know, 30-40 psi stock. So big difference there. So what I decided to do after doing some research was keeping the EFI pressure regulator on the truck, and then I am going to be adding this carb pressure regulator. So this is just a deadhead pressure regulator. Fuel feed comes in the bottom, goes out each side, 6 psi, 6 psi. Adjustable, obviously, up here at the top. So what I'll do is I'll keep the EFI regulator set to, I don't know, 12 to 15, somewhere in that range. It does have the bypass return on it, the bypass fuel back to the tank, the stuff it's not using, so that's helpful as well. And then this will mount up near the carburetor with a feed line going into each side of the float bowl. So I also like that because now each of my floats, the secondary and primary, will be getting the same exact amount of fuel. So each float bowl will be getting 6 psi as soon as you turn on the fuel pump. I don't think it really needs these equal length runners, but I just really liked that thought of having each float bowl getting the same amount of pressure across the board. So basically how it works is this goes underneath the carburetor. This is a plate supplied by Holley. This sits on top of it like this, and then each line runs to each respective float bowl. And then as you can see, they give me a little option here for a fuel gauge. So each side of this will have a fuel pressure gauge, which will be nice. So I've got one at my main regulator, then there'll be two here, 6 psi, 6 psi. You get the idea. So because this goes underneath the carburetor, I will need to unbolt the carburetor, take off all my old fuel stuff, which I'll keep because there's nothing wrong with that like kind of log manifold style. I just really like the idea of this going equal length into each float bowl. And since I went ahead and did the deadhead regulator after the fuel pressure regulator, the EFI regulator, just made sense to do this play and do all that. So without further ado, let me move y'all over here. So obviously we've got to disconnect this. This was the style I was using. So now the fuel pressure regulator will sit about here. From the fuel feed, it'll go up underneath the fuel pressure regulator, and then loop, loop, gauge, gauge. Super simple. Everything else will stay the same. All this is good. They did supply me with longer studs, so I've got to remove this whole carburetor assembly. I did run the truck dry, so this is still going to have some fuel, but I did try to get most of it out of the float so I don't make a mess when I take this off. I'll probably disconnect all this, take this off, and then take the lines off outside of the truck so whatever gas is still in here doesn't dump on everything. It shouldn't take long, so I'm going to get a wrench and pop these 4 bolts off, take this guy off, lift the carb off of there, set this throttle cable assembly aside, and that should get us ready to put the plate underneath, set this back on top, and start hooking the rest of it up. And I apologize, guys, if I sound all nasally. It's because I am. I got really sick, just with like a nasty head cold on the way home from our trip. So that was a little bit of an unfortunate way to end off our vacation, but I'm all good, no big deal, just super nasally sounding still, so bear with me if I'm clearing my throat and some stuff here as I'm working. Okay, now I'm going to take this carb in and stick it in the shed for now while we get the rest of that ready, so I don't get any dirt in there, because it is brand new and spotless so far. All right, brand new rag. I kind of gently lay it in there. And then let's see, I don't care about these studs, so I'm just using a pair of pliers. Okay. Perfect. I was a little worried that just my luck they would have been a different size stud, but they are exactly the same as they should be, but just never know. Thread in there like that. Awesome. Alright, fits like a glove. Perfect. Nice and sealed. I like that. Okay, and then now before I drop this on, which is going to sit like this, I am going to hook on my regulator because it gets a little tight to get to down here. So it's just 2 screws. So basically, let me just unscrew this. Both of them are out, so I'm going to face the lettering out where I can see it. So just like this, and then just got to figure out what screws it came with that go up in here. Okay, there we go. So kind of ugly underneath, but thankfully you won't see that at all. So still got space to get my fitting in there. And this fitting I do believe is actually too big, so I'm probably going to have to take it to the hardware store and find a reducer, because I think this is like a 6 AN and my feed lines are 8 AN. So another gasket, and let's go put this on. So first gasket's on there. Drop this panel on, which it fits, I think. Yes, it does. Drop that on. Just like that. Oops. Just like that. And then the carb sits right on top of that. So yeah, I can still get that fitting on with all this on fine. So, wow. Okay, let me go get the carb. We'll drop that guy on there, and then that's really the hard part. Then the last thing the only thing we'll have to make for this to work is the line that comes from under here up to there. So I'm just gonna 90 down and kind of just whoop right over. Super simple. So let me go get the carb and drop that on. All right, and then this guy sits like that. Sweet. Nice. Those carb studs are real long, which is good because my throttle bracket stuff really was not, the studs that were on here really weren't long enough for it, so that's much nicer. All right, had to move the camera there because it went crashing to the ground. It's a little too expensive just to have it falling all over the place, so carb's on. So now just the bolts. And then on these, I don't know if it really matters, but I like to do a corner, like across from each other, kind of staggered, just to ensure that the carb sits down there nice and flush and even. Don't need to go crazy with these. I'm probably going tighter than they need to be, but just want to make sure it's all good and sealed. All right, sweet guys. I decided to leave these pieces just raw aluminum because I kind of like the difference of the look between the purples and stuff, just to kind of keep it not just all purple in here. So that's done. And now, how are we looking on time? Whew. about my lunchtime, but we'll get this throttle hooked back up here. So the first thing we'll do is put these guys on. All right, guys, as you can see, I've got the ends on here, the nipples, the fuel pressure gauges, and then it's just as simple as doing that. Now this is going to be a little bit tricky because you kind of got to loop these things and they're really tight, but it's not hard, I don't think. Nah, there we go. Okay, so as you can see, maybe for the first time, because the sun is so bad right now, all back on here, throttle bracket. This is the bracket for the fuel pressure regulator. Bolts onto here, goes up in here. The only thing I don't like with these, with them being so short, is it kind of puts a little bit of a kink here. I don't think it's going to be an issue. And then back there, I could always redo these and do a little bit more of a loop. Or even like honestly a 45 fitting right here would be perfect. But that should work for now. Both gauges right there, 1 through 15. And then we will bring the feed from here around and then up under into this guy right here. So pretty sweet, guys. I'm gonna break lunch on that note, and then all I gotta do is that feed from the pressure regulator to the other pressure regulator, and then kind of fire the truck up, turn up the EFI regulator, and then set the carb regulator to 6 PSI. So I'll be back here shortly. We'll get it all dialed in. All right, guys, so we finally got it on there. I had to go to the hardware store to get a special fitting. Ended up fighting that fitting under there. It was just a royal pain. Hindsight, I would do all that underside stuff with the adapter piece on the carburetor off of the truck. And I'm just checking for leaks. Now, I still have to have this fuel pressure gauge on my EFI regulator down crazy low. So I don't understand, it's almost acting like this carb regulator is not doing anything, because I've adjusted it way in and way out and I can't seem to make it change pressure. So it's either that is honestly not really doing anything, or the EFI regulator is just overcoming it with fuel and it's not able to regulate it down, which doesn't make any sense. But I'm gonna play with it some more and start it up and kind of see how it does from there. But first I thought I'd show you in here. And excuse the car running, I just have to jump it with the battery. So let me show you all in the engine bay here. So here it is. You can see I've got the fuel on. I've got it set right around 7 PSI. Fuel line comes under there, up to that guy. As you can see though, it's still reading like 0 PSI. If I turn it up at all, it just overcomes it, and this needle just zing all the way around, just 360. So I'm not too sure about that yet. I'm not too worried about it for right now. I could always come back and do a fuel pump, like a carburetor fuel pump, and just get it exactly perfect, but trying just to retain the EFI pump. So not sure why it's not acting like I expected it to, but it looks cool. And if I ever go to a carb pump, all I got to do is just get rid of the EFI regulator and just do a line between the two of them. So it is what it is, but we're gonna fire it up now. I don't have a lot of time left. Got some dinner plans tonight, and this fitting piece ended up taking me forever. This is the longest part of this whole project. It was ridiculous, but it's done now. So I'm gonna set this thing down out here so y'all can see it fire up, and I'll check the fuel pressures, maybe play with them when the truck's running, see if anything changes. It shouldn't, since it's a battery operated or a electronic fuel pump, but kind of just gonna see what happens with that. So let me stick y'all down. As you can
as you can probably hear, it's way quieter than it was with just the open downpipes, which is awesome, honestly. It's almost a little too quiet. So we may come back in at some point and do an electronic dump tube underneath before the muffler, so it can be really rowdy sounding, but it's nice for up here. It's much more manageable now. So let me see about these fuel pressure regulators. I'm gonna see if I can turn up this one at all. Yeah, it's really weird. It seems like no matter what I do with this carb specific regulator, nothing changes at all. So that's kind of frustrating, because the whole point was to be able to set this guy at like 20 PSI and then back this guy down to 6.5, 7. So I didn't really gain anything here other than exact fuel delivery to each bull, which is nice, but yeah, kind of frustrating all at the same time. So turn my idle up a little bit. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. So yeah, let me turn this thing off. Anyways, guys, that's gonna do it for this video. Just wanted to get out a short video, super basic. What did we learn? That something with my setup doesn't work right, because I mean, I've got the gauge reading 0 PSI on the EFI pump. So I don't know, I don't know if that's because it's bypassing so much fuel. Like, there's a lot of unknowns because I've never done this with a carb regulator and a regulator for a EFI pump before. So yeah, maybe Aeromotive knows something I don't, which I'm sure they do with the regulator they built. Maybe it's got some kind of internal bypass valves and things like that that help step the regulator down more. I have no idea, but kind of just wasted money at this point. But either way, if I end up doing a carb fuel pump, I needed the carb regulator anyways, which I don't know if it works or if it's volume versus pressure. I don't really know. It's a little bit of a mystery to me. So it's done though. At least both of my float bowls are getting delivery, and I don't have any leaks at this moment. So yeah, it is what it is. Sometimes you win, sometimes you don't. But thanks again for tuning in, guys. The only things we got left on this are, I did get a new radiator for it, which I think I mentioned, that fills the void better. So we'll be putting that in. Little odds and ends up here, like running a vacuum hose to the MSD box from the carburetor, a vacuum line to the brake booster. I think I found a little brake leak the other day, so I think I need to replace a brake line. My buddy's coming over to help me do the gauges, which I'll just show you all that in the next video, and I'll show you the exhaust in that video as well, because I am rapidly running out of time here. So yeah, overall, I'm happy with it. I mean, again, it looks sweet. I like having the dual gauge for each float, just super extra. You don't need it, but it's kind of cool looking, so I'll take it. But yeah, really weird. I don't really know what the deal is. I'm just gonna roll with this setup for now, I guess, and if I just smoke the pump in the first couple months or weeks, then I do. And I'll probably do some kind of external carburetor pump with the bottom fed sump with a, you know, 2 good filters in between there and up here, and just call it a day. But gonna try to avoid that for as long as I can. Maybe this is working properly, but the gauges just don't read accurately due to the pressure versus flow. I don't really know. That's a little out of my area of expertise. So just gonna send it for now. But as always, guys, be good. Peace.